Good evening. How are you all? It's Belinda Hayes here, the spiritual teacher on the Spirituality Show with the Spiritual Events Directory. It's a beautiful Wednesday evening, 8:30, which is when I come on live for an hour to talk about everything science, energy, crystals, healing, and much, much, much more. So it's lovely to see you all and to have you all join me live tonight. So I'm just going to give everyone a moment to jump on because I know there's a few that kind of set some little reminders, etc., in their phones. So let me know you're here. Give me a great big thumbs up. Tell me how you've been. What have you been up to this week? I can't believe it's been a week already. I swear to goodness, time is seriously speeding up. So amazing. Anyone else in Brisbane in Queensland and just loving this rain at the moment? How are you, Tina? Nice to have you on live. Thanks for joining me. Hey there, Thelma. I can see that you've jumped on as well. So I have really thoroughly enjoyed myself. And for those of you that have been tuning into my lives on Wednesday evenings, I do thank you. A huge hey, Sarah. And we've been chatting about some of the most awesome stuff. And I'm having such a good time getting to know you all and connect with you all. So feel free in the description of this video to connect with me through my Facebook page or to jump onto my website or to even friend me on Facebook, because I'd love to keep in contact and get to know you guys more through this wonderful realm of social media. So, hey, Ezra, how are you, lovely? And Tina's saying she's loving the rain. Oh, so you've definitely got some with you too. It's nice, isn't it? It's it made it a little bit cold for me though. hence the scarf tonight. Hey, Loz. Hey, Brian. Great to see you guys on live. So tonight I wanted to have a chat to you guys, and it's really interesting because I was talking with a friend of mine today, and we were having this great conversation about manifesting. And afterwards, I thought, you know what, that's exactly what I want to talk to you guys about tonight, about, the stories of manifesting, the steps for manifesting, and the science behind the manifesting. All the S's tonight, the stories, the steps, and the science. So that, one, you can start to manifest your perfect life if you haven't already started doing that. Or two, so that you can really strengthen what you're doing within your life. And I wanted to start this evening by just sharing some amazing manifestation stories with you. Some of you, we hear the term manifestation all the time. And but to actually get that validation and these incredible kind of stories, it can be a real eye-opener as to just how incredibly possible and just how incredibly quick you can turn your life around by really tuning into manifestation as part of your life. So let me tell you an amazing story. This is my own personal story, okay? And I'm going to give you a couple of others from some beautiful clients and friends of mine as well. But the number one story that I can really give that really shows emphasis about the power of manifesting was probably for me about 6 months ago now. And I'd been sitting there and, it was that time of the year for me when all the bills come in at once. So it was, the rates and the car rego, and it was the school fees and all those kind of ones that hit you all at once. And they amount, when you add them all up, they start to amount to a serious amount of money. And so I'd said to my partner at the time, hey, can we catch up tonight and just have a chat about how we're going to manage all these bills coming in? What are we going to pay in cash? What are we going to put on the credit card, et cetera, et cetera. And at the time, it was just in the morning before he was heading off to go to work. And he said to me, why don't you just quickly run me through what we've got coming up so that I can have a think about it today and get back, then I'm on the same page tonight. So we were sitting there and we were going through it, and it worked out to be about just over about $4,800 in bills that were coming up in the next couple of months. And as we were going through it, I remember in that moment just sitting down on the bed and sighing and just saying out loud, you know what we really need? We really need about $10,000. I said $10,000 would just pay all our bills for the next few months, and it would just give us a little bit of a buffer and also a bit of breathing room as we continue on. And I just said this out loud, but I really felt it. I really meant it. And there was a purpose and a drive behind what I was saying. And of course, then I stood up and he headed off to work. And about an hour after he got into work, I get this phone call from him and he says to me, "Hey, there's $5,200 in my bank account." I said to him, "Oh, what?" And I said, "Where's it come from?" And he said, "Oh, Australian government." And I said, "Oh God, don't spend it. I guarantee Centrelink's paid it into somebody's wrong account. It's not yours. Don't spend it." And I said, "Why don't you give our accountant a call and just find out if they know what's going on or can look into it for us?" So anyway, long story short, he's rung the accountant and had a chat to them, and actually discovered that $5,200 was a payment that was due in back payment of something or other from childcare rebates and all sorts of things like that, that because he had lodged his tax, that had actually processed, and we had no idea that was coming in. At the exact same time that he was on the phone to our accountant, they've turned around and said, "Actually, we've been meaning to call you. You're on our call list this morning. We've received some refund into our trust account due to an error that was made in lodging your tax return. And there's actually $4,800 sitting here that we need to pay you." So within an hour of putting out that intention and what our needs were to the universe, we had actually manifested exactly what we asked for, of $10,000 to the dollar into our bank accounts. It was the most incredible moment. My partner rang me at the time and he's like, "You're not going to believe this." He was almost in tears and he said to me, "Do it again." And I guess that's what I wanted to really talk to you guys about today, was exactly that. It's not just like a phone call necessarily to the universe where you can go, "Hey, ATM, Universal ATM, I need you to send me 10 grand. But certainly that was an extremely powerful moment for me of realizing just how incredible manifestation is, how powerful it is, and just how you can use it to create and bring things into your life. I have, and you know, I started a rule at the start of this year, and I would love you guys, if you take nothing away from this live tonight, but to take this away. I kind of took a page out of, Jim Carrey's book, and I have said yes to everything that the universe puts in front of me this year that is random. Now, what I mean by random, and I mean I can have come across some of the most random things. It's the things that, you're not going about your day. You're going about your day and something that unexpected is placed in front of you. Somebody asks a question. Somebody asks if you can help them. All sorts of different things. Obviously, it needs to stay within your moral boundaries. You can't say yes to absolutely everything, but I did make a commitment to myself that this year I was going to say yes to anything random that appeared in my path. And I was down after making this commitment in February of this year, I was actually down at the local 10-pin bowling centre with my son. I let both of my kids have one day a year off school at their choosing, and of course he chose his birthday. And I took him on down bowling. And while I was there, this beautiful old lady comes up to me completely randomly. I didn't know her. She was in her very late 80s and with a, walking stick. And she's come up to me and she said to me, "Would you like to join our bowling league?" She said, "We're actually a player short and we're in desperate need of having another player. We play on Mondays." And she said, "And it looks like you've got a Monday available. Would you like to join our bowling league?" And I remember thinking at the exact time she was asking me, wow, thanks universe. This one's nice and random. And I said to her, yes, I would love to. Why don't you give me the details and I'll meet you down there on Monday. So I found myself down at my local 10-pin bowling centre the following Monday, joining a bowling league. I am, because I still actually do it. I am the youngest player in the entire league, and I have met some of the most incredibly amazing people. I think in my entire life to that point, I'd probably bowled maybe 5 or 6 times. and now I bowl twice a week. And so the reason I'm telling you this story and why it's relevant is as I've been bowling throughout the year, I have been wanting to get myself a bowling ball, my own bowling ball. I find myself getting quite sick all the time from sticking my fingers in those bowling balls that are constantly used by everybody else, etc. And I'd asked for my kids on Mother's Day. I said I'd really love a voucher to be able to go down and get my own bowling ball, the right size, and for my fingers, actually get my fingerprints, etc. Anyway, it didn't happen on Mother's Day, but it had been in the back of my mind for quite some time, and it was obviously something I really wanted because 2 Fridays ago, I'm down at my local 10-pin bowling centre, and a lady walks up to me, just a lady who happened to be bowling down there, and walked straight up to me and said to me, "Would you like a bowling ball?" And I said to her, "I beg your pardon?" And she said, "Would you like this bowling ball?" And I said, "What, you're just giving it away? You're asking me if I would like it?" And she said, "Yes, I want to know." She said, "My neighbour is an ex-national champion bowler. He has about 40 balls. He's slowly getting rid of a whole heap that he doesn't need anymore. He gave it to me. I've been down here today bowling with it, and it just doesn't really feel right. It doesn't fit my fingers. He doesn't want it back. I thought maybe you could take it and see whether or not it fits." And it is absolutely 100% perfect. It's the exact weight that I bowl with, and it fits. I have a little hidden secret. I have club thumbs. I don't know if you know what they are, but do you see the shape of my thumbs? They look more like big toes than thumbs. So they're unusual, especially for a bowling ball, and they actually are the perfect size for my thumb. So, and I was having a laugh with my friend today, beautiful Yasmin, if you're online watching this, and Yasmin and I were joking around, and I said, I manifested a bowling ball. I mean, it doesn't get more random than that when you are trying to manifest something. It's not always about money. And to me, abundance, when people use the word abundance is it's so many things. It's joy, it's happiness, it's time. One of the last things I think about actually is money. So to be actually sitting there only 2 weeks ago and manifest a bowling ball, I actually had quite a bit of a laugh at the universe. And I was sitting here today thinking about that, and I thought I've got to share with you guys some of these stories that I come across on such a regular basis of these amazing manifestations that happen. Number one, my own, it happened within an hour. I went from having $0 to $10,000 1 hour later after just saying to the universe, "You know what I need is $10,000. And it was all legitimate the way that money has come in. It was all owing, but it was just all about the timing and the need and the necessity for that. So when we talk about manifestation, I wanted to talk a little bit about the science with you. Or before I do, does anyone have any awesome stories? Because if you do, pop it up there. Tell me what you've manifested lately. Put it in the comments so that I can see it and know just how powerful as a group we are as manifestors. Because the science behind manifesting is truly incredible. And I want to share that with you guys. So next time you are attempting to bring about something in your life, maybe it's a new car, maybe you're trying to find the forever home, your perfect house. Maybe you're a renter and you're trying to manifest a very specific purposeful space. The place I'm actually in at the moment, I am a renter. I've rented for many, 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 many years. And because of what I do, I wanted to manifest a healing space that was big enough to run workshops, that had its own entrance from not just the front door entrance, but its own entrance into my healing space. It needed to have 5 bedrooms because I wanted one for a study, one for a guest room, my 2 children and my part and my room, as well as kind of all these amazing living areas, a nice covered backyard. I wasn't asking too much, but I put it out there, and you would not believe it. But the minute I actually sat down and was very specific with what I wanted and wrote it down, the next house I looked at was exactly what I had written down. And I wanted to talk about the way that works and why that is so powerful and how you can use it to manifest and create your perfect life. So in science, one of the things that, or one of the sciences that is really being talked about at the moment, that a lot of studies are being done in, is a science called quantum physics. Now, I won't go into mass details about that. It's a very complex science that's really starting to open up massive gateways. And for me, what's exciting about quantum physics is the way it's bridging science and spirituality together. All the concepts of spirituality and science is now starting to be able to study and prove them. But in quantum physics, they actually talk about what they call the quantum field. So for our spiritual type, all right, we would call that, putting it out there, put it out to the universe. And that concept of putting it out, quantum physics refers to putting, the quantum field that's around us. So I'm going to keep this in layman's terms so I hopefully don't confuse you too much. But the concept of quantum physics is that everything is energy. I've talked about this. If you haven't had a chance, please go back and watch my previous lives. Everything is energy, okay? And if you remember, matter itself is just a particle. It's an atom, all right? And it's when we add energy to the matter that the matter moves or does something. So when you have this particle, okay, or this atom, what science has actually understood through quantum physics is that the moment we observe a wave of energy, it collapses, okay? And what that means is that energy, because it's always energy, everything's energy, okay? So when it actually, the moment we observe it though, and create a reality by observing it, then this energy wave actually collapses and becomes a particle, or becomes matter as we know it. And that's as simple as I can put it. But the reason that's important is it means prior to observing it, prior to witnessing and seeing it and creating it into our reality, it means that it has an infinite possibility of being anything, an infinite possibility of being anything. Okay? And that's what they call the quantum field. So what that means is that when we are considering what we want, when we are trying to manifest and create something for our lives, then what that's actually doing is we are tuning into the quantum field and the infinite possibilities that exist within it. And then what we want to do is we want to observe the reality that we want. Okay, we call that manifesting in spirituality, but science calls it the observation of a particular reality within the quantum field. And so when we observe it, what happens is that energy field collapses to become solid, to become matter, to become a particle. Okay, this is I'm putting it in layman's terms, so any scientists that are sitting on there now on the thread watching me that are, keyboard warriors, I am just trying to keep it in simple terms. But essentially what that means is that when we actually connect into the quantum field, we have the ability to connect into every single infinite possibility of what our lives could potentially look like. Every single infinite possibility. And we want to observe the reality that we want it to look like so that we can collapse the energy wave around that and bring it into our reality now, because that's what happens. Okay, one of the best people, Joe Dispenza, I've talked about him before. He does amazing, he's written incredible books. It's called Becoming Supernatural was his latest book that actually goes into detail about quantum physics and in actual fact the observations and the scientific data that's been collected around proving how this, this collapse occurs. So we, back on the first live I ever did, I talked a lot about the heart-brain coherence, okay? That when we can slow down and when we meditate and when we take a nice deep breath and when we ground ourselves, then we actually bring our heart and our brain into coherence. And we can actually, it becomes this kind of pathway between these two places. Because one of the other things that has slowly been discovered is that we have what we call cranial neurons in our brain, cranial meaning head, okay? And it was always believed that was the only place we ever had neurons, these cranial neurons that transform and create thought and allow our body to do things through our cranial neurons. But it has since been discovered that cranial neurons exist in every single organ of our body, especially our gut. But more importantly, we have an unbelievable amount of them in our heart. So when we spend all this time doing healing around our mental space, okay, emotional and mental, or mental healing, especially, talking to a counselor, a psychologist, something like that, when we've been through trauma, we spend a lot of time moving and releasing the stresses and sort of the hormones and the chemicals from our cells and our cranial neurons of our brain. But we often forget about all the other cranial neurons that exist in our body, which means they have as much potential and power to actually create our reality as much as the cranial neurons in our brain. Okay, so we need to get our heart brain into complete coherence when we are going to manifest. And the way we do that is it means that what we think, okay, what we are wanting, for want of a better term, and what we are feeling need to be in alignment first and foremost. So one of the things people often say to me is, oh, if it's that easy to manifest, why can't I win the lotto? And a lot of the time that comes down to because you don't believe you're going to. For me, because I've spent a lot of time feeling into this, well, hang on a minute, could I win the lotto? How do I make that happen? Etc. But I have a limiting belief, or a belief that I have identified that has come through from my childhood in regards to the fact that to get money, you need to work hard. I was taught you work hard for your money. So unless I release that belief, that feeling around that, then I'm never going to manifest or create this kind of abundance around a lot of money in my life unless I'm working really hard to get it. So when your thoughts and your feelings need to be in alignment in that regard for you, okay? That's important. When I sat down, if you heard my story earlier, when I sat down on the bed and I said, you know what we really need? $10,000. And I felt that. I felt that feeling of what that would be like to actually have that, to give us, to give that that buffer and the way that it would assist us in our lives. And I thought it. The other thing you need to have is conviction. Conviction of that it can occur. I can get that. That is going to occur in my life. They say you need to feel what it feels like to already have it. That sense of gratitude. And the reason gratitude is so important when it comes to manifesting or creating or anything we do in life is, one, it's a very high vibration frequency. The frequency of the energy that emanates from us when we hold gratitude is very high. But also when we are showing gratitude, when somebody gives you a present, for example, and you receive that present and you show gratitude, then you've already received it. We show gratitude when we receive something. And so when we show gratitude to the universe, we're actually telling the universe we've already got it. It's kind of like this beautiful little way. If you remember Louise L. Hay, she would talk about, affirmations as if you have to write it as if they are. And gratitude is one of those ways that we can put out that, yes, we already have it. It is. We already are. And so when you can hold gratitude and feel into what it feels like to already have it, have conviction of heart-brain coherence in that moment, and be very specific, then we can actually just project out into the quantum field and choose your reality. There are some scientists, spiritual scientists, that are studying now to say, and I guess this goes with things like string theory and parallel universe theory, that what we're actually doing is kind of micro slipping between parallel universes. But I'll leave that with you guys as to what you wish to believe. Obviously, I don't know enough about that to dive into that content. But what I do know is this quantum field is accessible by all of us. One of the other things I talked about in the first live I did was about collective consciousness. If you remember, we talked about morphic resonance and the way that, how birds fly in sync and they know what each other are going to do. I talked about the 100th monkey theory and the way that, a monkey on one island, when it started doing it in Japan with the sweet potato, all the monkeys of the same species started doing it. Or the blue tits who used to drink the milk off the top of the cream off the top of the milk, and then all that time later after their life expectancy, they were still doing it, like it had been passed down through their DNA. And that's that proof that's starting to come through. They call it morphic resonance in science, of collective consciousness of a species. And when you consider that, we have a shared quantum field. Okay, it's not like you have this bubble just around yourself like this, okay, that you're only sending, your signal out this far. When we're sending it out, we are sending it out into the collective quantum field. And so it's important to know that in that field, in that universal field, there's no such thing as time. All right. We as human beings create time. We've done that through observation of light and dark, the sun rising and setting, the observation of the earth, spinning on its axis or moving around the sun, and we've created the calendar. And because we are carbon-based beings, then our bodies date. Okay, the carbon wears down our body, and therefore we age. Okay, but there is technically no such thing as time. Time is infinite, for want of a better term. And so when we put something out into the field, we also need to release and surrender to that happening. Okay, and what that means is that we're not going to put a time limit on it, like I need this money by Friday, I need this money by, or I need this new car by, or I need a bowling ball by next week. All right, we just need to release and surrender that the universe has got us, that the quantum field, that we have observed that particle strong enough that it's going to collapse into our current reality. Okay, and then we can just sit back, and this beautiful thing happens where, if you remember, we talked about the universe creating order out of chaos. It takes that reality because you've just observed it. We know, science is proving that when we observe it, it collapses the wave and it becomes a part, it becomes matter, it becomes a reality for us because it's an observable reality. So we've just done that. So now we have to wait for the universe to create that order out of chaos and align that in our lives for us. Sometimes that can take longer than we expect. Sometimes it can happen instantaneously, as my example showed you, where I put it out there and I said it, I felt it, it was exactly what I needed. I had gratitude for the fact that if that occurred, I would be beyond grateful. And within an hour, that money was sitting in our bank account, $10,000 that we did not have an hour before. The bowling ball, as I said, I asked the kids for one, to consider getting me one in May. Well, it's now July. But or August even now, but it's taken, that time for this bowling ball to manifest into my life. I'm and I can probably be guaranteed that most of you on here, on live, listening to me now are givers. You probably spend most of your time just giving. Your energy is, it's that humanitarian being of service that comes with the territory because it's who we are. It comes as part of our soul. We can't help it. Wouldn't want to change it even if we could. And so one of the things that's really hard for us to do is receive. Really hard to receive. And, this is where I think a lot of people fall down, especially when they work within this industry like this, is because it's that concept of we can hold gratitude, but are we ready and willing to receive it? And I guess the reason I've brought that up is to give you another example. I had been attempting to manifest for some time a new car in my life. Now, I didn't have the funds to get myself a car, nor was it actually a priority for me. I had a car, so it wasn't really a priority. I was making do with my vehicle. However, I was sitting there meditating one night, and I was focusing on what I wanted to manifest. And so I was holding in my mind and in my heart and holding all of the emotions around a car. And I remember thinking to myself, it's got to be specific. All right, I'm going to hold in my mind an image of a Mazda CX-5, just because I could. And I thought that would be a great car. Let's hold that one. Let's hold that one in my mind. And then I thought, hang on, Belinda, you're not being specific enough. I'll spit that out. And I thought, I'll have a green one, a green Mazda CX-5. Green's my favorite color. And then in my mind, as you do, sometimes your mind talks to you, I had a little joke with myself and I said, no, it can't be green. It's got to be red because red goes faster. And then I kind of went, and then I realized that, hang on a minute, I'm completely not connected to what I'm doing. I'm having jokes with myself now, and I kind of let it go, and I just left it there. Now, I was very serious about the manifestation of the car. I actually didn't care what kind of car I got, nor what color it was. But I knew it was going to have to become a priority in my life, and that's what I was setting during this meditation while I was in this beautiful space of heart brain coherence. And then, not 4 weeks ago, I was sitting there next with my mother, and she turned around and said to me, "I would like to buy you a new car." And I remember sitting there in that moment and went, "What? Pardon? Huh?" And I said to her, I don't want to say no to that, but I'm finding it really hard to say yes to that. And she was completely adamant, "I want to buy you a new car." Now, in a beautiful turn of events, she was able to help out a friend who was selling a car, who offered it at a beautiful rate to her because it was for me. And up pulls this car in my driveway. And wouldn't you know it, it's a bright red car. Now, it's not a Mazda CX-5, if any of you are wondering, but it is red, of all the colors that cars can be. And I know, it was this red car. And I remember at the time having a real laugh at it, just going, that's what you get. My guides and the field has a bit of a sense of humor, and they have, because I've owned a blue car, I've owned a silver car, I've owned a white car, but I've never owned a red car. And I remember thinking, I asked for that. I literally said, no, make it red, it goes faster, and then had a bit of a laugh. And of course, that would have just been filled with joy, that moment, the emotion behind the manifestation of that in that moment. And so what I realized that I've managed to do in the last 12 months is I have manifested a house to live in that is absolutely perfect for what I do in my business. I have manifested a brand new car. I have manifested $10,000 in a moment when I needed it, and 2 weeks ago manifested a bowling ball. Now, that's certainly not all I've manifested. They're just some examples that I wanted to give you guys of when we stop and actually look at how often we put in place the ability to manifest, or the fact that we're doing it without even realizing, is quite extraordinary. But of course, it comes back to looking at those moments of, are you in heart brain coherence when you are aligning to what it is you need? Are you holding gratitude in your heart for when you receive it as if you already have? Okay. And then when you're sending it out into the quantum field, are you really seeing that reality? Are you observing it enough that the quantum field can be collapsed to form your new reality in that regard? And finally, the kind of fourth point is, are you releasing and surrendering the time frame around it, so the universe can bring that to you, or the energy to you, as and where it's meant to happen in divine timing, once it creates that order out of that chaos. So they're the steps, they're the steps for manifesting. And I think what happens is we get so caught up in our lives and we throw these random thoughts out. We kind of go, oh, I really want that, or I really need that, or there is so many multiple books and things and YouTube clips and whatever that you can read about manifesting. And they all have such wonderful, important content, but they do come back to those main four concepts. One of the things, and I've said it before, I wrote out what I wanted for a house. And one of the amazing things is, I think it's statistically, and don't quote me 100% on this, but it's somewhere like 96 or 97% of what we write down happens. 96 to 97%. I remember back in, primary school, they would talk about goal setting. You hit high school and they start hitting it really hard. You're constantly enforced, certainly within the spiritual space, about setting goals. If you work with a business coach or you run your own business, you'll know how important goal setting is as part of that. But more importantly, writing your goals down is a form of manifesting. What you're actually doing is bringing your heart brain into coherence at the time of writing. You're creating your reality. You're observing it and creating your reality when you put it down. There are so many other ways to do this. If any of you do vision boards, you're sitting in that moment, especially in a place of creativity when you're putting it together. You're kind of bringing it out of your solar plexus as well when you're doing something like a vision board. But that is one of the reasons they are so powerful. I mean, I actually, when I do my vision board, I take a photo of it, and it is actually the lock screen of my phone and also the screen of my computer, at the background of my computer at all times. There's not a moment when I am working or doing something that I'm not seeing my vision board and what it is that I am trying to create for my reality around that. And it's incredible to go back, say 12 months, if that's what you're when you created your vision board, if you're creating it for a 12-month spread, I'm creating a vision board for 2019. Be aware of that, because you're throwing a time limit on it, okay? So don't do that. Let go of the time limit. I'm creating a vision board for my future reality. The future is the very next moment that hasn't yet occurred. That's how quick it can occur and be, all right? So be mindful of, and then just release and surrender. Some of those things may take time, And the final thing I wanted to talk about, and this is the 5th step with manifestation, is take action. Show the universe that you want it by taking some sort of action towards it, all right? I can't manifest a bowling ball if I'm not taking action towards actively attempting to do that. If I want to manifest a house into my life to rent, if I'm not looking at rental houses, how am I ever going to know when I find it? It's not going to come to your doorstep, some of these things. Some of them do. Let's be honest, some of them do. But not all of them are going to come to your doorstep. The universe is going to be, once you take that actionable step, the universe can then start putting it all in place around you, and just creating and creating and creating. It is amazing. Some of the clients I work with who really embrace the concept of manifesting, who then say to me, do you know, I've never wanted for anything that I've needed, or I've never been needed for anything I've wanted, whichever way you kind of want to do that. They say to me, financially, I'd love to, have more money or have savings, but then when I think about it, or I look back, or in hindsight, I always have the money I need at the moment I need it. I say I want to travel. And I did this myself last year. I said I wanted to travel. It had been ages since I've traveled, and I'd really love to travel overseas again. My kids are at that kind of age where they're a little bit too young to, or they're too young but too old to take time away from school, but a bit too young to kind of be remembering if we did a big world trip or something like that. So in that in between, and I thought, I really want to travel. I love traveling. And then in the most beautiful, amazing way, again, I put it out there, I ended up overseas twice last year. Once to Japan on my own for 10 days, where I headed over and did solo travel, which is the best thing in the entire world. No kids, no partner, nobody else's time frame. You do exactly what you want to do at any moment in time in a foreign country. It's incredible. And the second was actually all the way over to Vancouver Island in Canada, where I attended the Science and Spirituality Conference. And even even as I'm sitting here talking to you, thinking about how I ended up in Japan, it wasn't something on my radar. I had actually been wanting to go back to Japan. I run Reiki Roots retreats. I take people back to Japan, to the root of where Reiki started, and we do a tour. We go to Dr. Usui's gravesite and memorial, and we do a Reiki share by a traditional Japanese Reiki master, and also it's a beautiful, beautiful experience. I run those annually. So I'd been wanting to get back to Japan to organize and create and to do some more on the ground kind of research about places and hotels and all sorts of things. And but it had just been an idea in the back of my head. I hadn't actually put any plan in place. I hadn't been doing anything for that. And what happened is I was sitting there one night and I get a phone call from my best friend. And she says to me, she's an amazing, beautiful, intuitive lady. So Raylene, if you're on, love you. And she actually said to me, she rings me one night and she said, I've just put $250 in your bank account. And I'm like, oh, how come? What do you owe me? Or what am I meant to buy you? What's happening? I've completely forgotten. She said, no. She said, I just got this immediate thought that you need to go to Japan. I know you're not going to go. You're not going to book your own ticket because I know where you're at the moment. So I put the money in your account so there's no excuse. Go ahead and book your ticket. And there was no, again, that's that kind of needing to receive. And, it makes it sound like people give me things all the time. Okay. That's not actually the reality of it. But when I am presented with it, I am so utterly grateful for it. And the universe, at the end of the day, if you don't say yes to these random things, this is what, we've come in full circle back to what I was talking about. If I didn't say yes to that, then who knows what the universe was actually lining up for me to experience. I mean, I know because I went. I went and I created this and I run these amazing retreats now as a result of it. And the fact that she listened to her intuition, it wasn't that the universe created that around me, but my thoughts get sent out the quantum field. She picks up on that energy because it's all collective consciousness. We have a connected quantum field. She picks up that energy. Her intuition kicks in and she's throwing $250 into my bank account to send me to Japan. Absolutely, utterly amazing. It still doesn't matter how many years I've worked in this industry. It doesn't matter how many people and stories I hear. It still blows my mind, the power of our thoughts. Absolutely blows my mind. The way that we can actually set intention with specific strength behind a thought and it becomes a reality. And I never understood. I never knew how or why that worked. I trusted that it did because it did. I've seen it happen, and obviously even growing up. But now with quantum physics coming in and all the science and that being done, I'm now able to actually research and see and actually look at the data and the experiments being done that are showing exactly why and how that's working. If any of you are interested in that, jump on and, there's so much on Google these days. Just Google quantum field and spirituality and see what comes up for you to back up everything that I'm saying here for you and for you to go and find more and more and more information. I mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's incredible. His latest book, Becoming Supernatural, is one that you should read. I mean, he's got many. That was just his latest one that he released at the conference in Vancouver Island last year that was absolutely incredible. And, even with things like the research he's doing working with quantum physics, they're discovering a new brainwave, that they're now calling super gamma, that isn't something that we've ever kind of been aware of before. And when scientists or have been have been in the room observing, the readout of the brainwave patterns, they've gone running into the room thinking the people who these electrodes were connected to were seizing, and yet they're actually just sitting there in perfect blissful meditation. But that is how active their brains are becoming when they are connecting into this space and this quantum field. He does an advanced workshop. Once you've done his his beginner workshop, he does an intermediate one, and he comes out to Australia. For those that are in Australia, he's certainly all around the United States and Canada, and he does travel around. But he does come to Australia twice a year as well, and he does his advanced workshops and teaches you how to connect into the quantum field in your waking moments. And like that, he does mindful meditations, walking along a beach with you, connecting into the quantum field. He shares an incredible story about one of the ladies in his course that was attempting to see how the quantum field works. She wanted to go, all right, I've learned all about manifestation. Let's see how quickly we can. She was all about trying to work out how quickly we can make this happen. And so she, one of the things he does is to, again, visualize it. You have to observe it. And so in meditation for 2 days, she worked with Joe during his workshop, meditating, connecting to heart-brain coherence, getting really versed and connected into how to do that. And while she had her eyes closed, she was trying to actually manifest. She originally started saying, all right, I want $10,000. And he's like, go bigger. And she's like, 100,000. He's like, go bigger. And she said, $1 million. $1 million. I want to manifest $1 million. And he said, what would that look like? Really see it. And so in her meditations for 2 days, she actually visualized herself picking up her mobile phone, opening up it was the Bank of America app, banking app on her phone, clicking into her bank account and seeing $1 million written on the screen as her account balance. Okay. That's what she was visualizing. That was the reality that she was observing. So the quantum field could collapse that and make that a reality, a real reality when she opened her eyes. And she did that. Anyway, 5 days after the course ended, she heads home to wherever it is that she's from, clearly America. She has a Bank of America account. And she ends up contacting Joe, and she says, "You're not going to believe it, Joe. I have $1 million in my bank account." And what had actually happened is, long story short, and I'm paraphrasing, okay, you can get the actual rendition, I believe, through his books or his website or whatnot. But she had, my apologies, gone home and then had been contacted a few days, 5 days later, by a lawyer. And basically the lawyer had said that there was a relative, or she had been adopted and wasn't aware of it, something along those lines, at birth, and her biological parents had some empire. They had passed in an accident, I mean, which is awful. That's never how you want to manifest your money, but that's how it occurred for her. And she had been named as part of the trust, the family trust, or the trust that had been set up, as one of the beneficiaries, and they needed her Bank of Account America details to transfer $1 million into. And it happened. I mean, it literally happened. And that is just one of, I mean, hundreds of stories of how people have used manifestation through that process and really embracing the concept and the understanding of that quantum field to create the new reality, the perfect reality of their life. You know, I've spent a lot of time talking about positive thought, and we started back with some really simple experiments done back in 1990 with Dr. Emoto, talking about how that can change molecular structure of your cells, all sorts of things. But we're past, I mean, we're what have we got? We're 30, we're 30 years on from 1990. And, you know, 30 years on, we're now doing the science, and we are embracing the spiritual concepts and the understandings of what science, I mean, we've always known it, but science can now back it. And actually, because of that, we've got so much more knowledge and awareness of how it's working, that people are using this to their absolute benefit. And, you know, one of the things I do, for those that don't know, I hold a couple of degrees. Yes, I work in the spiritual industry. I'm a Reiki master, and I do crystal healing teaching. But I also have a master's of business, for example. And so I bring my spirituality into my entrepreneurship. And I use that to manifest in business. You know, if you're trying to manifest X number of clients, if you're trying to manifest a new program or content, if you're trying to manifest a new relationship, maybe you want to present and be a speaker on stage, and you can manifest that. And it happens. I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, I can't believe it's just been chat this whole time. But I could just give you story after story after story of people I know that have kind of been sitting across from me, and we've been doing maybe a business consult, you know, a spiritual business consult, and we will end up sitting there writing some goals down, and they'll be like, you know what I'd really love to do? I would really love to start doing presentations or talks around my local area where I can, and then within 3 days they're on the phone to me going, you're not going to believe it. I ran into a woman who I used to work with 15 years ago at Woolies yesterday, and she's the CEO of blah, blah, blah. And we were talking about what we're doing, and she's invited me in to do a presentation to, etc. So 3 days earlier, they'd just been putting it out there as a concept, but they really felt it. They were in it. They were setting specific goals. They were seeing that reality. And then bang, the universe has actually set that path in place for them. And when you all are aware of just how amazing that process is, you can use it more and more and more and more in your life, and for everything. Okay, everything. There are no limits to it. If you want to win the lotto, manifest that. Lotto is a bit of a tough one because, as I mentioned earlier, you've got to be aware of your limiting beliefs around it. Okay, but I know people that have done it. In actual fact, my partner's auntie, so mother's sister, has actually won the lotto 3 times. Division 1, 3 times. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So there are ways and means. So if you missed any of this video at the start, go back and have a listen, because I do start talking about what those steps are, you know, the heart-brain coherence, the gratitude, visualizing the reality so that you can collapse that particle, collapse that wave within the quantum field. And then, of course, surrendering and releasing time. All right. Doesn't mean it's going to take forever to happen, but when you surrender and release that time, then the universe can bring that to you, in create that order out of chaos, how that's needed, but also remembering to begin to take action towards it. Okay, because what you're doing is enforcing commitment behind the reality that you do want. It's more of that gratitude. To me, they go hand in hand. Action and gratitude sit side by side, you know, in that regard. So hopefully, guys, that's given you, not hopefully, I'm not going to use those words. I know that's given you guys something to think about. And I want you guys to take away and go and do that now. You know, I know that Melissa's actually written up there just even now, I'd love to do a vision board. Go do one. All you need, I mean, nowadays we have Google. Find your images, print them out, you know, or don't even, it doesn't need to be cutting up a magazine. Write words all over your vision board as to what you want. If it's not a board, then grab a journal, grab a piece of paper, whatever it is, and write down, you know. I have a beautiful friend who wrote a list a few years ago called My Man, and wrote down very, very specifically what she wanted in a partner. And she now has that man. I mean, you can go down her list, and it wasn't a short list, and it was a very specific list, but you can go down and tick, 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 tick. It is absolutely incredible. But that did take a bit of time for her as well, you know, because she had to take action to find that man. So she ends up, you know, dating some that aren't the man before she realizes. So Thelma, thank you very much. Please do try it. Yes, try it. And you know what? If you're on live next week, tell me what's manifested for you in the week. Let me know what's happened, or send me an email through my webpage, or jump on and friend me on Facebook, or through Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher, and let me know what's going on, because I'd absolutely love to hear and get more and more stories, of course, for my own repertoire that I can share. Elle, I love you too. Mwah. Good to see you on here, beautiful. And Rhonda, you're more than welcome for the live. So I am on live every Wednesday from 8:30 to 9:30. If you're not on live with us on Wednesday, but you're watching a replay, thank you so very much. Of course, they are all on the Spiritual Events Directory Facebook page. Otherwise, you can jump on their website as well, and you can click through to any one of the beautiful people that host these spirituality shows and see their whole entire repertoire through YouTube as well, of all of those. For me, for those that would like to meet me in person, if you are in Brisbane or around the area, I have a presentation that I am doing, just a short 1.5 hour presentation on crystals for their everyday use. And I'm doing that in Woolloongabba at the Rendezvous Tea Room. So jump onto my Facebook and check out that event, because tickets are only $15 to come along to that. So that's just a way of me connecting with people. I spend a lot of time doing one-on-one work, and so I love just being with a group of people talking about something I love in person, as well as doing it live here on Facebook like that we are. So lots and lots of opportunities. I will actually be starting to travel soon as well. So I was speaking to it. Yeah, here we go. Thelma's just put it up. Please come to Melbourne. So I was speaking to a lovely lady last week who's down in Tasmania. And yeah, I would absolutely love to start traveling. I'm manifesting that at the moment. So drop me a line. Let me know. You know, I'm going to need places to stay and venues and all sorts of things when that occurs. So if you're from the area, then you'd know it better than I do. So yes, definitely get in touch and we can make that happen together, because this is how it happens, right? I'm taking action. I'm putting it out there, and I'm just going to let the universe provide that perfect place for that. So enjoy spending time in the quantum field. You know, don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself as to what your reality can be. It can truly be something amazing, and you will surprise yourself how different your life can look a year from now. Okay, how miraculously amazing it can look a year from now. So give it a go. If you've never actively or consciously, would be a better term, manifested before, then start doing it. Okay, choose something that's that you can actually what I'm trying to say is choose something that when it occurs, you're going to be like, I made that happen. So choose something, if you can, a little bit random, like a bowling ball, and see what comes up for you in your life anyway. And of course, I said at the start, if you take anything away from this live, the greatest advice I can give you, because I've been following it myself this year, is to say yes to the random stuff that crosses your path, because you have absolutely no idea the bigger picture of why or how the universe is bringing this together for you. Or maybe it's not even for you, but somebody you're going to meet or cross across the path, and how it can change lives. So I hope that information's been super special and super helpful. I love, 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 and hold so much gratitude